So I hear you're stuck. You came to the right channel. We're going to be going over free code camps, build a stylized to-do list. We're going to be going over all the user stories so that way we can get you out of the stuckness. And we're also going to explain a few things along the way. If this is your first time seeing our videos, seeing our channel here, my name's Rob. I'm a coding instructor for PreCodeCamp, where we go through the learnings of becoming a web developer. And one of the best things that you can do here for us for this video, for this channel, is go ahead and like the video, helps out the algorithm, and comment down below if you did end up getting stuck and this video helped you. All right, let's go ahead and dive in to see what we have to do. All right, so I always like to give a real quick overview on what we're going to be building because I'm going through this new with you through this video. So I'm experiencing it at the exact same time. I'll give some teaching points along the way for sure. But it says in this example, this is what we're going to be creating. It looks like we have some check marks. We have maybe some unordered list. We have some links and then some colors, margins, and things of that nature. Okay, so looks good. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these user stories. Now, the way that freeCodeCamp is built out, if you haven't gone through any of them, hopefully you have before this video, we have some user stories that we're going to go through. And usually the user stories might be enough to get us through passing all these tests. So at the end of everything, after I go through all of the user stories, I typically come down here and just run all the tests. So you can run them at every single step if that's what you want to see if we got it right. But I'm going to wait till the end and then fix what needs to be fixed. And I may make mistakes. I'll have a chapter at the end that will fix any of the mistakes if we have them. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm glad to see that freeCodeCamp does give you some boilerplate code to kind of start out with, but it doesn't give us every single thing that we need for linking the style sheets. And I did take a look at the notes here, and it did say, please make sure that you link your style sheet in order for your CSS to be applied. In order for us to do that, and if you're forgetting how to do that, because we don't get any kind of IntelliSense with the freeCodeCamp version on the web, then what do you have at your disposal? You can always go to Google and you can type in things like, how do I add CS to my HTML page? And then throw in the keyword W3 schools. And this is what's going to pop up here for you. And it says on here, there's 3 ways for us to insert the styling sheet. One is the external styling sheet, which is what we're going to be utilizing. And then the other 2 here are internal CSS and inline CSS. As far as the external CSS goes, all we need to do is place a link inside of the head, and then we need to reference our style sheet here. So obviously ours is not called mystyle.css. Let's take a look at what we have to do over here. So I'm going to go ahead, come underneath the title. I'm going to paste what we have here. And then as far as the styling sheet goes, up here where this is named styles.css, that's what we need to put in here. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to styles.css. Now, how do we test this out to see if it works? Because visually, I don't see anything happening. What I typically like to do is just come over here to the CSS. Notice that we get this new little column over here. And let's go ahead and target the body. And let's just do a background color and make that green. And that's going to tell me that the style sheet is linked, because if I did not have this spelled properly, notice that there's no linkage. So that's one of the important things that we need to do to start off this lesson. Usually they have it up here to tell us to do it, but they put it in the notes, and that may cause some issues when you are first looking at this. So go ahead and test that out. Again, we're going to remove the body here. It didn't tell us to do anything as far as the styling sheet goes. And we're going to move on to user story number 1. Okay, so user story number 1, it says we should have one unordered list with the class of to-do list. And now anything that we're going to type in here as far as being rendered to the page, it needs to be inside the body. So that's where we're going to start our focus here, is inside the body. And it says that we need an unordered list. The class has to be set to to-do list. Exactly how it's spelled up here. Syntax does matter. Uppercase, lowercase, it all matters when it comes to HTML and CSS. So I'm going to go ahead and close this off here. And that should satisfy user story number 1. Okay, user story number 2. It says inside the unordered list, we should have 4 list items. So I'm going to hit the enter key right here, and we're just going to create 4 list items. And that's going to be with an opening, closing tags right back to back. And we want that to happen 4 times. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, move to the next line, and that will give me 4 of them. And notice I do get the 4 bullet points over here. Nothing's inside of them quite yet. We have to go to the next user story. So that should satisfy us for that one. Okay, so user story number 3, it says inside each list item, there needs to be an input element with a checkbox. And we do want to make sure that we give it an ID, followed up with a label, and then the for attribute has to be associated here with the ID that we gave for the checkbox. And then an unordered list with the class of sub item, and then a list with an anchor element. And that anchor element should have a class of sub item to target a valid. Wow, lots of stuff going on in this one. Let's go ahead and dive slowly through it. And maybe a good visual of the to-do list that we can take a look at here is we just got done doing the 4 list items. Okay. So there's 1, there's 2, and so on. Okay, so that's what we just got done doing. Now, what it wants us to do next is have an input field and make it a checkbox. Then it wants us to add a label. Okay, and then it wants us to have another unordered list and have it have an anchor tag in it with a valid to it. Those are the things that we're going to do. And we're just going to do one of them for right now. And then we're going to copy and paste them for the other 3. And we'll modify the things that need to be modified on it. Okay. Because the thing that I'm thinking in the back of my mind is when we're using IDs, we can only have 1 per page where it references that ID. So that could be troublesome. And then obviously we want to have different links on here. So let's go back here to the code and see what we can do about it. So when going through the problems, just go through it at one stage at a time. And let's just tackle the very first bulleted item on there, which is an input element checkbox and have the ID be a unique value. For that, I'm going to go ahead and do input. The type is going to be set to checkbox. Make sure that is in quotes. And then it says that we need to give it a unique ID. So let's go ahead and do that part here. And I'm going to go ahead and call this one video like, and make sure that is wrapped in quotes there. And then I can go ahead and close off the input field. So immediately we should see a little check mark that we can see right here, and we can toggle it on and off. Next on here, it says that we need to have a label. So let's go ahead and do a label. I am going to clean up this just a little bit to make it look a little nicer. Okay, the label we're going to put right after, and that's going to be label. It wants the for, and we need to make sure that this matches the ID that we just came up with above. Okay. Again, it said that we can use any ID. I'm just using what I'm doing here to create. And if I can fix my word label, that would help as well. Next, I'm going to close off the label. And inside or in between the label, that's where I can actually type in the text. And we can say, like this video. And how do we know that the for worked? Well, if we click on the text here, the check mark should happen. If I were to remove the ID or change the ID where it no longer matches, clicking on the text no longer makes that linkage. So that's a real quick test for you to see, hey, did my linkage work for my label matching up with my input field? Then it says that below this, we need to have another unordered list. And again, this is where your screen's going to look very messy, and maybe I can go ahead and get rid of the style CSS for us to maybe visualize this a little bit better. And so under here, we want to have an unordered list, and I'm going to go ahead and close that off so I don't forget. And then inside here, it says it wants to have a list item. So we'll do a list item, and it says it wants to have an anchor tag on here. So let me close off the list item, and we'll say anchor tag href. I'm going to set that to empty strings for now. And then let's go ahead and close all the anchor tag. Now, what can we put inside here? I'm just going to put a link to video. So I'm just going to go ahead and put link to video in here. And that should give me this little link here. And I'm just going to come up with one here, and we're just going to do google.com and make sure I put my other slash in there. Okay. So that is now a valid link. And I believe that we have everything that we needed, except I'm rereading this here. It says that the anchor tag needs to be of a class of sub item link. Let's go ahead and update it. Class equals, okay. I do not need that comma in there. I accidentally copied that. And then it does say that the unordered list item itself, it also needs to have a class on there. So let's go ahead and do that also. So that's going to be sub item, and then we have a sub item link. Okay, perfect. So that is exactly what we need. And now I'm going to go ahead and copy this, which is from input all the way down to the UL, okay? We may want to go ahead and put a comment in here to help us with the organization a little bit. I'm just going to put the end, and that way I know that, hey, this is where I'm going to be grabbing from. So make sure that it is from the input field all the way to the end comment that I just went ahead and put in here. And now I'm going to apply that to the second one. This is where we can come up with what do we want to do for the other ones, right? So let's go ahead and change this to subscribe. Remember that these have to match, and then everything else can really stay the same. If we want to change this little to-do list here, link to subscribe, okay? Now we're going to go ahead and repeat this process where we're changing the ID, changing the for, and then we can update the text in between. Okay. And again, we can say subscribe to this channel for the label. All right, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here and update the other ones. Okay, so let's go ahead and review what all I changed on here. Again, things that you want to test out once you have everything is when we click on the text, make sure that the correct text box corresponds with the item that you are clicking on. Okay. So I did end up going with visit PreCodeCamp, and then we also have the ID for this was visit site, the for was visit site, and then inside here, I just kept everything with Google just so that we can check the box. And then I updated the text on here to display something different on each box. Okay. All right. Let's see what we have to do next. Okay. So I wanted to do a real quick once over to make sure that I did get everything in here for this user story number 3. And it looks like I did miss something in here. And it says that when the anchor tag is clicked, we need to open up a new tab. And for that, we need to add a target attribute to each one of these. And again, it doesn't matter where it goes. And I can just put it here at the beginning so I know that each one of them has it. And it's going to be target, and we want to set that equal to underscore blank, and then finish up the quotes there. Okay. And that should help us out for the rest of them, right? So we do need to copy this and paste this on each one of our anchor tags for this to work. Okay. Again, it doesn't matter where you place them as long as each anchor tag has them. All right. So now I believe we're ready to move on to step number 4, which is getting into styling. User story number 4, it says that your anchor elements shouldn't have any default text decoration. So what does that mean? This is our links here, and you can see that each one of them have an underline, and it wants us to remove the underline aspect of this. And looking at each one of the links, we do have the ability to target the sub item link. I don't know if that's what it's wanting us to go for. I'm going to go with it wanting all anchor elements. It should remove the underline. And so to do that, I'm going to open up my style CSS, and that's how I have this little column over here. And I'm going to go ahead and target all the anchor tags. And I'm just going to do the A, hit the curly brackets, and we want to set the text decoration to none. So we can do text decoration, and we want to set that to none. Okay. So now you can see that those underline on each one of these links went away. And this should satisfy user story number 4. User story number 5, it says you should set the text color of the links to a color of your choice. I'm just going to put in here the color, and then I'm going to call it olive. All right, that changed the color, and that satisfies user story number 5. Okay, user stories 6 through 9, they're all talking about pseudo classes. And I'm going to go ahead and throw up a graphic here from your lectures that you had with freeCodeCamp because it may help us remember what needs to happen with these various pseudo classes. And so we have a link, we have visited, hover, active, and one of the ones that they didn't make a chart of, which is focused. So we're going to be covering all of those in the next couple of user stories. But the very first one says, when your link is visited, you need to have that color change to a color of your choice. Based off of the diagram that we have right now, the one that we're going to choose for this pseudo class is going to be the one with visited. Okay, so once you visited it, it will recognize that and it will go ahead and throw that color on there. So let's go ahead and test this out here. I don't know if we're going to be able to test it out with the way that freeCodeCamp has this set up, but the run the tests will definitely pick this up. So how do we utilize pseudo classes? And again, if you remember from the video that you should have watched prior to this workshop, is they get a colon that kind of separates these. So the pattern that we're going to follow here is what element do we want? Okay, which is the anchor tag. And then we're going to put a colon on here. Okay, now what pseudo class do we want to have on here? This is going to be the visited one. So we want visited. And I'm going to put the curly brackets on here. So anytime somebody has visited one of our links and clicked on it, it should change this color. So when they come back, they know that they've already been to it. And so we want color. We want that to be salmon. Again, color choice for us to pick out. And that should satisfy user story number 6. And don't forget the semicolon on these. User story number 7, it says that when your links are hovered over, the color should change to another color of your choice. So again, right now, nothing's happening when we hover our mouse over it. We do get the little pointer finger, but other than that, we don't see anything happening. And again, this is where we're going to follow that pattern of what element do we want to use, right? Which is the anchor tag. And then what pseudo class do we want to use? If we look at that chart again, it's going to be the hover, okay? So a link is when the user mouses over it. So we're going to do hover, follow the pattern of the curly bracket, and then we're going to change the color of this to, let's do green, okay? So now when we hover over these, you can see that the color does in fact change. So we just added the pseudo class to our anchor tag. All right, that satisfies user story number 7. Let's move on to the next one. User story number 8 says, when your links are focused, there should be a colored outline around. Okay, so this is the one that was not shown on the video chart, but they explained it later on in the video. And basically what we want to have happen is maybe you're utilizing the tab functionality on the page, and you can see right now, it puts a little blue box around the things that are being selected, but we can change that with the focus. And so let's go ahead and do the same thing that we have done before with the pseudo class, which is what element do we want to attack? We want to attack the anchor tags. What pseudo class do we want? And this is going to be focus, okay? Curly brackets. Now, instead of the color, we want to focus on the outline. So we're going to do outline, and we want to set that to, I want to change this to 1 pixel solid, and then we'll just do red. And that way we can see that we can hit the tab, and on the anchor tags only, we see that we do have an outline of red, okay? All right. I believe that satisfies user story number 8. Let's move on to this last one here. All right, so this is the last one here of building a stylized to-do list for freeCodeCamp. It says that when the links are clicked, the color should change to another color of your choice. So we're talking about click. So let's go ahead and pull this chart back in here. And the moment that the link is clicked, we want to utilize the active pseudo class, all right? So pretty simple. Coming over here, I'm going to go ahead and target the anchor tag, and I want the active, and then I'm going to do the curly bracket. And for the active, let's go ahead and change that to yellow. So we'll do color, and then put a semicolon on there. So how are we going to test this one out? If we actively click on it, see how that changed to yellow, and same thing with this one. So that should satisfy user story number 9. All right. Final test. Let's go ahead and test everything out here. All right, fingers crossed. Let's go ahead and try this out. And hey, We didn't have any errors this time. That is crazy. Usually I get a couple, but this time we didn't have to improve anything. So it looks like what we were originally going with ended up. All right, so this is another one in the books here. My name's Rob, again with PreCodeCamp. I hope that you really enjoyed this video. This one was a simple one to go through, but we may have not totally fully grasped some of the concepts that they were wanting to do, from what two classes are they looking for, and we had to pay close attention to how we want to structure the HTML. So the CSS seemed to go well, but then the HTML, that's where it took a little bit of time. So anyways, thanks for watching. Please make sure that you like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next lesson.